Well, look what we have here. Another episode of Wind Waker Unflooded, the 3D modeling fan art project where I am reimagining the kingdom of Hyrule as it could have existed within the world and art style of The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back. As always, it's good to have you. I want y'all to hear that, right? I want y'all to hear that first off. Before we get started in the video, I want y'all to know that I'm thankful for you. And it's not, it's not just that, like, I want the views, I want the likes, I'm a like goblin, New Zelda enemy, the like goblin, demands your YouTube views. Appeared in Tears of the Kingdom as the gloom like goblin. Sorry. But no, yeah, like, I'm always thankful to be able to share this project, right? And even though it's like, I guess something I'm thankful for, right, is that y'all are still excited about it and patient with it, even though this project has a long way to go and it's taken a long time, right? And this is something that, like, some of y'all have been watching this channel for years, not years and years and years and years, but, a couple of years, right? Maybe 2 years, or a year and a half, or, like, it's been a long time, right? And so I know that so many of y'all have been patient with the journey, and I guess I just want to voice that, like, this project takes a long time. And sometimes it feels like progress is slow. At least I feel that way. Sometimes, like, a month goes by and I'm like, did I even really accomplish that much on this project? Because I want to get it done eventually, right? I want to be able to, like, put my stamp of completion on it and say, yes, we did it, yay! Like, I'm not going to prolong this forever. It takes a long time. It's ambitious. This is a hugely ambitious project. We're creating a whole world here, which I'm excited by. But I guess, yeah, I just want to voice that, like, I'm thankful that like I can share, like, rough versions of this project with y'all, that I can share, right, these videos where you see progress being made, but it's a little sloppy here and there, and there's first drafts, and there's things that aren't done, and they'll move around later, right? And I model something and it's kind of ugly at first, and then we workshop it a little bit, and like that's the process, right? Like, it takes a while. And I guess just, like, I'm thankful that y'all are, like, yeah, that y'all are into that, right? That y'all want to see the creative process. Like, I'm thankful for that. And I do feel like it's exceptional to some extent, right? Because it's like, yeah, I just know, I remember when I started Wind Waker Unflooded, or when I started posting about it, because it might have been several months, it might have been a full year already of, like, tinkering around with the project before showing it off. Because, like, I didn't feel like I was ready to show it off yet, right? I was, like, still, like, figuring out if the project was even feasible. And the last thing I wanted to do was announce it and then give up on it because I realized it wasn't feasible, right? I mean, the first thing I did was, like, I started, like, I put Hyrule Castle in the map, right? I imported a couple of the islands, and I was like, okay, I think this is possible, right? It's like, I think I can connect the dots, right? I think this space in between I can fill with something interesting. I think I can create this world that I've always wanted to see, right? But it took a while for that to feel feasible, right? It took a while of, like, okay, well, let me actually, like, connect the dots a little bit. Let me actually, put Lon Lon Ranch in the map. Let me add Kakariko Village from Ocarina of Time next to Windfall, right? And show how that's a bigger settlement now, right? Let me extrude out said island. And I took those kind of starting steps, and then I was like, oh, well, this is possible, and I just have to keep working on this. But it's possible, right? It's totally possible. And so, yeah, just, like, since then, I've started doing these videos, and I'm very glad that I can share it with y'all and get feedback every step of the way. I think that's something I'm really thankful for, is that I can post a video, y'all will leave comments about, like, oh, this is what I want to see next, or this is what I think works, or this is what I think doesn't work, this is what excites me. Like, I love hearing that, and yeah, I'll go ahead and voice that I love hearing your ideas. But enough about that. Let's talk about what we're working on in this video. So, this was a really fun thing to kind of work on, but what I thought might be interesting would be, how do I explain this? Like, I want to work on putting parts from the Forbidden Woods dungeon that we explore in the Wind Waker. I wanted to be able to incorporate that into the overworld, right? I thought that it would be interesting to, like, kind of incorporate those areas, have them kind of be connected to the Forest Haven and Forbidden Woods that we see in the overworld, but be able to see some of those, like, interior rooms, right? And yeah, like, kind of, like, incorporate them into the map itself, not just have this kind of like amorphous, like, oh, I'm sure these rooms are like, you can imagine that they're in the Forbidden Woods, but it's like, no, I want that to be part of the overworld. I want that to be freely explorable, right? And it's like, in order to accomplish that, I had to be a little bit loose with my interpretation of how the Forbidden Woods works as a dungeon and like what the location is like. So it's like, I think like you can imagine in the Wind Waker that like every room exists as a room within like the withered tree that you see above the water in, you know, like in the overworld, in the on the Great Sea, right? In the Forbidden Woods, like what you would call the exterior, that every room in the dungeon exists kind of within that shell. But to really make things fit, it's like I had to like kind of put the rooms around that, which like geographically would say that like in the Wind Waker, instead of just like walking into the tree, you would imagine that you walk in, you know, descend down below the ocean, and then the dungeon starts, right? And it can lead you kind of around underwater Hyrule, which I don't think is necessarily the intention of the dungeon, right? But to me, I'm willing to use my imagination to kind of allow the space to fit, because I thought that it would be interesting. I thought it would add to the map, and I think that there's enough room for interpretation to say that, sure, like we can have this. I just thought it would add to the map, right? I thought it would add to the immersion. I knew I wanted a little bit more of the woods in the map, and so I thought, well, why not borrow from the woods that we already have within The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, right? Why not pull from those woods first, right? And so I enjoyed like, because of the way the woods are designed, right? Is like they're all a part of this, you know, their own great trees, right? That have all been withered, and these different rooms are really designed in such a way where they all seem like separate trees. So I kind of embraced that, and I was like, okay, well, so we're gonna have, I'm really only gonna focus on like 4 rooms, right? The other rooms we'll say are like not accessible yet at this time in the timeline. You know, like we'll just say that like there's 4 main rooms that are now visible in the map, right? And that they are each kind of a part of their own separate tree trunk, right? These hollowed out different kind of giant stumps. Maybe they're all different branches of the same giant underground tree. Who knows? You can imagine that. Wouldn't that be interesting? That if the Forest Haven and the Forbidden Woods were all a part of, if they were 2 branches of one tree underneath, and then within the overworld there were different branches coming up from that. Like, who knows? We could interpret that. It's up to your imagination. But yeah, like I'm kind of choosing to allow the rooms to kind of be separate trunks in a way, separated out, and they'll be like, you know, kind of a short, like, you know, little bridge in between the space as well. And that's something I love about Zelda Dungeons too, is like when you can kind of have that like going from outside to inside, and I wanted to kind of like have that feeling of like, right, of like you're in the dungeon, and then it's like you go outside for a second, then you're back in. And I've always kind of enjoyed those moments. And sometimes they're only illusions. Like, I mean, like in A Link to the Past, like you'll be actually in the overworld map, for example, whenever you go outside a dungeon as part of its design. But in something like Twilight Princess, there are rooms that are intentionally designed as exteriors. For example, within the Forest Temple, right, where like some rooms are inside the tree and some rooms are like exterior rooms in the forest, but it's all within the dungeon, so to speak, right? It's kind of illusions. You're not really in the overworld, but they're designed to be interiors and exteriors. Same with Snow Peak Ruins, for example, right? That's designed that like some rooms are inside the mansion, some rooms are right in the exterior of the mansion and its courtyard, etc., right? And that is just like there's room, yeah, like that's built into the design. It's built into the design. But anyway, just like I think that's always kind of been special for Zelda Dungeons, is when they can kind of navigate those exteriors and interiors. It's a little thing, but like I think that it makes certain Zelda Dungeons kind of special, and I wanted to kind of add that flavor to the Forbidden Woods as well. So I like, to me, it's like I said, it's like if I'm being really strict about my interpretation of developer intent, then I do assume that everything is like that. Like I'm not extrapolating correctly. I would assume that like all the rooms of the Forbidden Woods are meant to be in that shell that we see in the overworld. But like I said, like I think we have freedom here. I think that this improves the map. I think that I think it just works well enough. Something else I wanted to implement from the Forbidden Woods was just like extrapolating just a couple more of its nature assets as well. So I wanted to bring it into the map, right, to be able to bring out a couple more trees, etc., to be able to use throughout the kind of Lost Woods region in the map for Wind Waker Unflooded. So I was glad that I like imported that and got those out, and like I think that adds just a little bit extra spice. I tried recently, I don't know if I brought this up, it was maybe 2 videos ago or so that I made this change. I don't think I brought any attention to it, but like I made a point of like kind of separating out like the nature that is used for each region, right? That like the Farron region, which I like, obviously like where you draw the lines for each region is kind of different. For me, the borders, right, of the Farron region, for example, are like, I'm calling that where my version of like Lake Hylia and Outset Island is, like that's Farron. For me, Necluda is like the Lost Woods, right? Eldin is like, Eldin and like the Gerudo Desert like are clear regions. And then I have like Central Hyrule in the middle. That's how I kind of separate out the regions. And you may see that like as I'm labeling files in the project as well. But anyway, it's just like each region has its own like biodiversity, and there's different trees that grow in each region. And of course, like the Lost Woods has like taller trees and like, vines, right? And there's like, it definitely has its own biodiversity. But I also wanted to extend that to Central Hyrule and the Farron region and Eldin and the desert, and really make sure that like everything that grows is different depending on the region, because I think that was important, and I went ahead and kind of incorporated that, and so that's handled a little bit better in the map than it was a month ago, because maybe a month ago everything was kind of running the same nature assets except for the Lost Woods area that had its own selection of trees and etc. But I really wanted to make sure that, especially separating like Central Hyrule and the Farron region, that those are different now, for sure. But anyway, I just wanted to point out that's also been a recent change, update, to the project. But yeah, without further ado, like I think that's pretty much everything I have to talk about in this video. But I guess just like, yeah, like happy April, everyone. I know I don't even know how to talk about it, but we recently got some more news on the Switch 2, and I'm very excited to see that come out and see what other games get announced as well. I know there was a lot of announcements for Zelda fans, like that I'm excited about, right? A new Hyrule Warriors game is always exciting. I loved that series, and I still do. So I'm very glad that we're getting more of it, right? Like that's something that I think is really great. And I hope that we can still get Hyrule Warriors games even outside of like the Breath of the Wild aesthetic, right? And that timeline, right? Because I love the first Hyrule Warriors game and how it like incorporated different elements from different games, right, etc. So I would love another Hyrule Warriors game. But yeah, just very exciting to see the Switch 2 finally announced, see some Zelda announcements, and yeah, like I expect that by the end of this year we'll have our first teaser for the next 3D Zelda. That's my expectation based on the timeline, like the development timeline of the previous Zelda games. We'll see. I could be totally wrong, but that's my prediction. But I'm excited. I will say, like, I think anticipating the release of the Switch 2, I want to do a marathon of some of the Zelda games, and maybe do some challenge runs, and I want that to lead to reviews of those games. And maybe I've mentioned this before, but it's just like, I feel like I would love to voice my thoughts on these games. And I mean, some of those retrospectives, like, what can you say that hasn't already been said? But I do feel like I might have a unique voice, right, on some of these issues. There's certain things I want to talk about that I don't think have been talked about. Because I love, like, the video reviews by Liam Triforce and King K and Matthew Matosis. And, like, those are very much, like, gold standard for, like, Zelda game reviews, for sure, right? But I think I have my own spin that I'd like to offer it as well. So if you're interested in seeing those, if you'd be interested in seeing me review different games from the Legend of Zelda series, let me know, because I would definitely be interested in putting those together. Not to take away work on Wind Waker Unflooded, but in order just to express more of what I have to say about the Zelda series and share my passion for this series, right? And I've been, I don't know, like just like expressing my gratitude again. I've been thankful that this channel, it's not just about the fan project, but it is about like being able to share a passion for Zelda and a love of this franchise and these stories and these games, right? These great works of art, in my opinion. I think these games are beautiful, right? And so just like I really appreciate that with y'all. You know, obviously Wind Waker Unflooded as a fan project is the purpose of this channel first and foremost, but I have also appreciated that like this is also a community space for like-minded Zelda fans. So yeah, let me know if there's any other kinds of videos you'd be interested in seeing as well. But without further ado, I think that's all that I really want to talk about in this video. Yeah, just here's a little zoom out of the progress. But yeah, I'm really excited to implement this into the map, and comment down below what you want to see me work on next. And without further ado, I'll let you go.
Now, if you're looking for other ways to support me, as always, you can support me as a creator by becoming a member on Patreon. There you'll get access to all kinds of exclusive behind-the-scenes content like in-progress outlines, scripts, storyboards, rough cuts, and even soundtracks for my newest films. By becoming a member, you'll also be thanked in the credits for any film I finish during your membership. You can also support me by streaming my music. I compose all of the scores for my own short films, and you can listen to those soundtracks on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to music. Just look up Joe Kendrick. That's JoeKendrick. Y'all have a wonderful day, and without further ado, I'll let you go.